Hello and welcome to The Legal Question, a podcast by Let's Chat Law. I'm your host, Hannah May, a data privacy solicitor based in London.
And I'm your host, Gabrielle, a pupil barrister based in Leeds. In this episode, we're going to talk about all things networking, and we're going to give you tips and tricks on how to become a more efficient and effective networker. And we'll also answer a not so silly question from the Let's Chat Law community.
In case you haven't heard of Let's Chat Law before, we are a CIC, a community interest company, which aims to provide a safe space for honest conversations about law and to allow aspiring and current lawyers to ask not so silly questions about starting their legal careers. Since 2020, we have organised online and in-person events for aspiring lawyers, ranging from topics about different career paths to commercial awareness to application tips. We're now a community interest company, as I mentioned, and this year we're launching our website and, of course, our podcast. If you'd like to hear more about our journeys and why we founded Let's Chat Law, you can listen to the first episode of this podcast series, which is out now. So, Gabby, we're talking about networking today. What is networking and what does it actually look like?
I think networking sometimes gets confused with the idea of using people and using people to form kind of relationships so you can get something back from them. That's not what networking is. Networking is about genuinely trying to make connections with people that can, that is both mutually beneficial to both yourself and the person you're connecting with. And I'm sure we've all had them nightmares where something goes wrong and, you're at a networking event and you fall downstairs or...
Does that happen to you?
No, not from personal experience. However, we all have them concerns and it is normal.
Yeah.
I think my main concern was saying something wrong and embarrassing myself. So then I limited what I was saying, and I think my first networking event, I don't think I networked with anyone. I think I stayed in the corner, far away from everyone, terrified of absolutely everyone. And then gradually you get better at it and you become more confident. But I still walk into rooms many of times and think, oh, I don't really belong here. I don't know what I'm going to say to these people. And I think, it is normal. Just take a deep breath. Take it in. If you feel nervous, walk around the room first, get a feel of the room, see if you know anyone. If you don't, that's fine. And gradually you will build that confidence up and that resilience up to kind of deal with the questions and go to these events. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we can talk about tips for networking a little bit later, but I think one of the main things is, especially when you're an aspiring lawyer, you have a lot of imposter syndrome because you're just there like, I don't deserve to be in this room, all these people are so much better than me, or they've gone to a different or better university or so, and so on, they, different backgrounds, and I think it can be, very easy to get caught up in that self-doubt and that negative talk, and one of the things that's really important to remember is that everyone's probably thinking that. Everyone's probably a bit nervous and scared about networking, and they're looking for maybe the friendly face that they met at the last networking event, or that they've known from law school, or that works in their same job. I think it's very scary going to a networking event by yourself, but I think it's definitely very doable, and you can do that. It's not weird. That's the point of networking, isn't it? It's just to go and meet new people and build connections.
And I think most of the events that you'll be attending, there will be someone else there that is also terrified, and it's also their first networking event. And when you see them, smile at them. Just go in with a smile, and then you'll be able to feel maybe a bit better about that.
Yeah.
So moving on to the silly question segment, which was created in the same spirit of Let's Chat Law, which is that we have a safe space and safe community where you're able to chat with people and ask any question that you feel that you are able to ask to professionals or certain, groups of people. We answer questions from the Let's Chat Law community, and today the question that's asked is, how can I feel less nervous when approaching strangers?
That's a great question. I think, as we touched upon in this episode, everyone's always going to be a little bit nervous. I think one of my main tips, which is kind of ironic coming from me because I'm not often on time, but arrive on time to the networking event. It's so much easier to make friends if you're one of the first ones there, because you can see who's come by themselves, or like, you know, meet someone and then they might have a friend coming a little bit later and then they can introduce you to them, and so on. It's like a snowball effect. But it's much harder than if you arrive late and, you know, people are already in groups. I have a really funny story of when I went to a networking event. It was kind of more like a social mixer languages thing when I was living abroad once. And it started at 6, I turned up at 9. So I was super late. Maybe 8:30, let's give myself some credit. But I turned up really late.
That does not surprise me.
And it was basically the bar that it was hosted in had turned into a club, and they turned down the lights and the music was so loud. There was a DJ and I was there like, oh my god. And I'd had to pay for entry to 2 drinks, so I'd paid €10 to get like 2 free drinks, like including the ticket, and then I was there and I was like, well, I have to drink my drinks because I paid for them. So I hid in the toilet for like 10 minutes and I was like psyching myself up, like, Hannah, you could do this. Like, you just need to meet like one person, then you've made a friend, and then you can be like, I've like what I was saying about like setting a little challenge for yourself. Like, you're just like, all I need to do is speak to one person and then I've networked, you know?
Yeah.
So I managed to, and then, yeah, it was fine after that, but it was just the initial thing of like, because I turned up so late, everyone was already in their groups, everyone already had their friends, and I was there like, I'm by myself, video no mates. So that wasn't good. And the other thing is, my other tip would be, I've forgotten it. Oh yeah, hang around by the drinks and the refreshments, which I've already talked about. But I do think that one is a good one because, you know, you're most likely to get people who might be by themselves and so on, so you can like have a chat with them, and just, yeah, like strike up normal conversation, general conversation, as you said, about the food, the venue, you know, what the speakers have said, etc. I also think if you do go to an event which is like got a talk or a panel discussion beforehand and then networking afterwards, don't be afraid to stick up your hand and ask a question.
Yeah.
One of my old colleagues at my old job, he was in business development sales, but he would just ask a question every single time. It didn't have to, you know, or if there was, you know, who disagrees with me, you know, he'd put his hand up and offer a contrarian opinion just because it would get him noticed by everyone else, and it would get him noticed by the people on the panel, and they would, you know, everyone would be like, oh, like, you spoke earlier,
Yeah.
like, it gives people an incentive to strike up a conversation with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you, Daryl, for that one. What about yourself?
I think my first tip would be to wear something that you're comfortable in, but you also need to feel confident in it. One of the female baristas at my chambers always wears beautiful suits, always looks amazing, and when I was speaking to her, I was like, you know, I'm going to get myself a beautiful suit for when I first start on my feet, because my first day I'm going to wear a fancy suit and feel like I'm part of the part, so then when I am speaking to strangers and speaking to clients and standing in front of the magistrates or the judge, I feel more comfortable in myself and more confident. And I think that can reflect in people when you're networking or when you're meeting certain people. Make sure that you feel comfortable and confident first in what you're wearing, how you look. Because I think if you don't feel comfortable and confident with how you look, you know, turn into the shell of a person that you are, and you start to, rather than going out and being confident, you start to come in and like close off. And I think that reflects in your kind of body language, your tone, how you look, and then that puts people off approaching you as well. And then I think having questions up your sleeve. If you know that you're going to a networking event, have questions prepared. You know, it might be topics about a law firm or general topics about the weather. That's always a good
Very
one.
British.
But I think normally when it's networking events, they will say to you, these are the people that will be attending. You know, maybe research them, look them up, find out a bit more about them. A lot of websites might refer to people's hobbies or interests, and that might be quite useful for you to use and utilise. But I do think just be yourself as well, and, you know, ask open-ended questions for people to respond, to kind of generate that conversation and keep the conversation going.
Well, thank you very much, Gabby, for your tips on wearing the right clothes and dressing for your day or the event. I definitely think that's a really good one. So we'll round off this episode by saying thank you very much for listening, and we hope you found our networking tips useful, and we hope that you never accidentally eat a chicken tikka sandwich either. So our next episode will be all about application and interview questions, how to tackle them, and we have a silly question from the listener, the Let's Chat Law community, all about
Well, I'm gonna start that again.
Oh my god.
What I was thinking is, are you doing that and can I do the other bit, but I cannot do the credits?
Okay, I'll do the credits.
Thank you.
Oh god. Thank you very much, Gabby, for sharing your top tips on networking. I definitely believe in dressing for your day. I think that's always really important. Thank you very much for listening to this episode all about networking. We hope you found these tips useful. Our next episode will all be about application and interview questions, and we have a silly question from the Let's Chat Law community which asks, is it okay to say I don't know, or if you realise halfway through your answer that you don't actually like the answer you're giving? So we'll be tackling that in the next episode.
And you can also find Let's Chat Law on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok and our website, where you're able to sign up to our newsletter and get involved with the Let's Chat Law community, so please do. The links will be in the show notes of this episode. Goodbye and thank you again for listening.
We'd like to say thank you to Betty, Maxine Onwitika, Elif Mutlu, Srinity Murugeshan and Josh Gawthorpe for producing and editing this episode. Oh dear.
I'm crying.
Oh.